Hey everyone, my name is Chris Stone and I'm the Director of Communications here at the National Association for Gun Rights. And as we start 2023, I wanted to look back and just take some time to review the major victories we had during 2022, all the fights that we were involved in. And I want to personally thank you and all the Second Amendment supporters out there for your constant activism. It's your grassroots lobbying which ushered in a significant numbers of victories. So let's check out what the 4.5 million members and supporters of the National Association for Gun Rights accomplished. Number one, we passed constitutional carry into law in 4 states. If you're a member here, you know that this rights restoring legislation known as constitutional carry is our flagship pro-gun legislation that we lobby for in state legislatures around the country. But if you're new to the gun rights movement, it's really simple. Constitutional carry legislation renders concealed carry permits optional. The law doesn't eliminate the permitting system completely because we know some people will still want to get concealed weapons permits for reciprocity with other states which do require permits. But it's a simple law, and it says that if you're legally allowed to possess a handgun, you should be able to carry that handgun openly or concealed without having to get a license. For us, it's a fundamental firearms freedom issue. Through citizen grassroots activism, we've taken constitutional carry from a piece of legislation which couldn't get a hearing, much less a vote, in almost every state capital, and we've catapulted it to the most popular pro-gun issue in every single state legislature around the country. And in 2022, Alabama, Indiana, Ohio, and Georgia all declared that law-abiding citizens no longer have to beg the government for permission. They don't have to pay a tax in order to carry a handgun openly or concealed for self-defense. And the National Association for Gun Rights, our staff, they were on the ground in all 4 states fighting to get the Second Amendment restored. We delivered your petitions, and you made phone calls and emails that are necessary to crank up the heat on the politicians, demanding that our rights be restored as the founders intended. And now, as we enter 2023, 25 states, over half the nation, recognizes constitutional carry as the law of the land, which means over 100 million Americans can now carry a firearm, openly or concealed, without having to beg the government for a permission slip. And that's thanks to our members and the efforts last year and over the past decade. Number 2, stopping Joe Biden's assault weapons ban. Throughout 2022, President Biden was spouting off more nonsense than almost any president ever before. And banning the sale and possession of semi-automatic firearms has been his number one priority. And in 2022, it was our biggest defensive fight. Now, if you know anything about Joe Biden, he's been a career politician, and he's actually made it his mission over 40 years to ban semi-automatic firearms. He bragged about voting for the assault weapons ban in 1994. And in 2022, he kept doubling down on his promises to take away your right to keep and bear arms, commonly owned firearms which many law-abiding Americans use to defend themselves. In fact, the AR-15, a semi-automatic firearm, is the most popular gun in America. And in late July of last year, it looked like Biden was going to really start acting on his word. That's because by a vote of 217 to 213, Nancy Pelosi's Democrat-controlled House of Representatives advanced H.R. 1808, which was the House's version of a ban on semi-automatic weapons, and they sent it to the U.S. Senate. She even convinced 2 of her House Republican colleagues to join her in the madness. And when most people in Washington, D.C. decided to go on summer vacation in August, your National Association for Gun Rights and our staff in Washington, D.C. kept up the pressure all summer long, right through November when the elections were coming. With weak-kneed Republicans caving on gun control bills left and right, like they did earlier in the summer, we shifted most of our time and energy into making sure we stopped Biden from getting his gun control crown jewel, which is a total ban on all semi-automatic firearms. And ultimately, H.R. 1808 failed in the Senate, and the Senate versions, which were sponsored by other Democrats, failed. It was the aggressive lobbying and grassroots activists from the National Association for Gun Rights, which demanded that Republican senators not cave on the issue. It was that activism which stopped the bills from advancing. But make no mistake, Joe Biden will continue to rally his cronies to force every gun control scheme down law-abiding Americans' throats for the next 2 years while he's in the White House. Number 3, our legal foundation filed 7 lawsuits. Just like a good boxer needs to know how to land a 1-2 punch, the blows we deliver against gun control cannot just be in legislative chambers. They're also in the courts. And we landed some heavy punches in 2022, and that was with the help of our legal arm, the National Foundation for Gun Rights. With the foundation, we filed 7 lawsuits to end semi-automatic gun bans and standard capacity magazine bans in different states. And all of those cases are still before federal circuit courts, and they're pending full litigation in 2023. Thanks to the brilliant Supreme Court decision authored by Justice Clarence Thomas in June of 2022, we were handed a 4-ton wrecking ball in which to dismantle gun control in the leftist states all across the country which have semi-auto and magazine bans. The Bruen decision essentially said the lower courts can't turn the Second Amendment into a meaningless right, and that from now on they must rule based on the text and historical context of the Second Amendment. If we're successful, our lawsuits could set pro-gun precedent in California, Arizona, Alaska, Oregon, Idaho, Hawaii, Nevada, Montana, Washington, Wyoming, Utah, New Mexico, Colorado, Kansas, Oklahoma, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, New York, Connecticut, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Maine. That's all because those lawsuits were filed in federal circuit courts. So our lawyers at the foundation, they drafted some of the strongest legal defenses of the Second Amendment that I've ever read. And we're hoping the defenses are ruled favorably in 2023. So that's a fight we're still involved in. Fourth, the National Association for Gun Rights Political Action Committee delivered more victories in the U.S. Senate. Sending pro-gun champions to fight for us in Washington, D.C. is something that we take very seriously. And it's exactly why we formed the National Association for Gun Rights Political Action Committee. This is the arm of our organization which can endorse candidates and advocate for their election to Congress. It's incumbent on us to expose anti-gun politicians who vote against the Second Amendment and make sure that 100% pro-gun Americans are there fighting for us in the halls of Congress. But with our PAC, we've been able to help elect heroes like Representative Thomas Massie and Senator Rand Paul, who both won re-election in 2022. But we also need fresh faces in the DC swamp, dedicated to upholding liberty and freedom. People like Eric Schmitt, who is the newest pro-gun U.S. Senator from Missouri. Before being endorsed by the National Association for Gun Rights Political Action Committee and then elected to the U.S. Senate during the 2022 midterms, Schmitt served as the Attorney General of Missouri, where he blocked federal gun grabs and actually battled the ATF. Eric Schmitt fought for Missouri's Second Amendment Preservation Act, a law which keeps the federal government from enforcing unconstitutional gun control laws in Missouri. I can tell you he's the real deal. Well, now we have another stalwart defender of the Second Amendment in the United States Senate who will join the likes of Rand Paul and Mike Lee, fighting back against Chuck Schumer and the Biden gun control agenda. Finally, number 5, moving forward in 2023. Our focus will always be defending and restoring your Second Amendment rights. Even though Biden is still in the White House and anti-gunners control the Senate, we want to be aggressive in defeating all gun control. At the state level, we're already working on passing more constitutional carry bills in multiple states. South Carolina and Nebraska are the key states our field staff will be lobbying in, but they need your help to see constitutional carry become a reality. And even our Sunshine State affiliate, Florida Gun Rights, they've actually got Ron DeSantis, the governor there, on the record supporting constitutional carry, asking for it to be sent to his desk. And of course, our legal foundation will be busy litigating all those Second Amendment cases in several of the federal circuit courts. So we've got a long year ahead of us, playing defense against Joe Biden and going on the offense with constitutional carry in state legislatures across the country. And what I want to do again is just thank you for your activism, everything you did in 2022, and then joining us in the fight in 2023. It's your work that makes all these victories possible. Without the 4.5 million members and supporters of the National Association for Gun Rights, we couldn't rack up the offensive and defensive victories like we did in 2022. And we look forward to doing it again in 2023. If you're not subscribed here on our YouTube channel, hit that Liberty bell so you can follow us and get notifications and see all of our important updates. You can also check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And you can go to gunrights.org to see all the important news that we put out. And if you want, join our email list so you can sign your petitions and make your phone calls to be involved in the battle for our gun rights in 2023.